Good morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. My name is Logan Colas, and sitting to my right is my co-chair, Elizabeth Hill. And welcome to the CPAAC, and welcome to FCC headquarters. We will have time at the end of today for live audience participation. Members of the public who are remote can email questions to livequestions, that's plural questions, live questions, at fcc.gov. And at this time, we would like to welcome FCC Commissioner Trusty to share some remarks.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am glad to have the opportunity to be here and express my appreciation for the committee's work. The FCC's mission is to ensure that all Americans benefit from communication services, and the work this committee plays an important role in those efforts. More than ever, all Americans need access to modern communications networks and services. They're for entertainment and for education. They're for catching up with family and friends and for keeping up with issues of the day. They're also for public health and for public safety, and they provide opportunities for expression and underpin economic opportunity in the 21st century. Given the role these services play in modern life, we can't allow anyone to be left behind. To achieve this goal requires advanced networks that are available throughout the country, including in currently underserved areas. It requires services all Americans can use, including people with disabilities. And it requires protecting consumers from illegal robocalls that not only can be a tool for fraud, but also can undermine trust in our communications. Tackling these challenges will require public and private sector stakeholders working together on many different fronts. I experienced this firsthand in recent visits to Mississippi and Alaska, where I saw state, local, and tribal officials, as well as schools, healthcare providers, and industry, doing the hard work required to bring the benefits of broadband to their communities as part of federal programs like universal service and through initiatives on their own. The charge of this committee will enable the FCC to tap the expertise of a wide range of stakeholders and bring it to bear on protecting consumers and closing the digital divide. Thank you so much for contributing your knowledge on these important issues, and I look forward to working together with all of you in the days to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, we will turn to Commissioner Gomez. Is she here?
Hello, Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. Welcome to your first meeting. Thank you for the invitation to meet with you, and I'm sorry I could not join you in person. At this moment, as you watch this video, I am traveling across the upper Northwest to meet with stakeholders, industry leaders, and community members to talk about wireless and space innovation, connectivity in remote areas, including on tribal lands, and of course, the First Amendment. First of all, thank you in advance for your service in this expanded advisory committee. The diversity that you bring in expertise, perspective, and advocacy is a valuable asset to the Commission and to our duty to the public. Your group has gone from being the Consumer Advisory Committee to now being the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. This name change brought you more colleagues and an expanded mission. Now, collectively, you'll address not only consumer protection, but also communications access for people with disabilities. As a commissioner, I care deeply about both of these issues. I am very pleased to see that our agency will continue to collaborate with outside partners on critical recommendations to inform our work to protect consumers and to ensure that people with disabilities continue to access communication services. From robocalls and spam texts to accessible emergency alerts, I know we must be vigilant about protecting consumers. I also like to do as much as I can to empower consumers with useful information about our decisions. That is why I offer remarks in Spanish at the open meetings. I look forward to seeing your recommendations on consumer education and engagement overall and in multiple languages and formats, because successful engagement is done when we meet people where they are. Perhaps even we could collaborate. On accessibility, I know that the disability community faces specific technology challenges that the FCC is entrusted to pay attention to and to address. The disability community also brings a rich and innovative perspective to every aspect of our work. I trust that you'll continue to harness the creativity that the disability community brings to communication services for the benefit of all consumers. Please keep me updated on your work. I look forward to seeing your progress on recommendations, joining your conversations when I am able to, and reading your reports. As a former member of an advisory committee, I know too well the amount of work that you just signed up for, and I sincerely thank you for your contributions.
Thank you, Commissioner Gomez. We appreciate your virtual remarks. At this time, we're going to turn to Ed Barthol, the Chief Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau.
Thanks, Logan, and thanks to our two commissioners for sharing their remarks this morning to get us started. Welcome to the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee, or CPAAC for short. My name is Ed Bartholomew, and I am the Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, as Logan just noted. The CPAAC is a vital source of input for the Commission on consumer protection and accessibility issues, and we truly appreciate your involvement and dedication as we embark on this new term. To echo a bit of what Commissioner Gomez just shared, I have also served multiple terms on the Consumer Advisory Committee in my past, including one as chair. And I do understand firsthand the commitment each of you has made to devote your time to being a part of this committee. I know many of you also have experience serving on past advisory committees like the CAC and the DAC. Advisory committees play a unique role representing consumer organizations, accessibility organizations, and industry. The recommendations developed thoughtfully reflect collaboration and often identify where consensus can be found. Over the years, the CAC and the DAC have provided the FCC with valuable input on a number of important topics. The DAC's recommendations on the use of telecommunication relay services on video conferencing platforms expedited the deployment of relay on platforms like Zoom and Teams. Another set of recommendations on the use of artificial intelligence to caption live video programming will help inform future efforts to modernize captioning regulations. And the DAC's recommendations on direct video calling led to a DVC forum that we hosted last year. Similarly, recommendations from the Consumer Advisory Committee, or CAC, led to Commission actions that empowered consumers and advanced important consumer protection priorities. Numerous CAC recommendations have informed the Commission's work to combat robocalls, including the use of stir-shaken and call blocking rules. CAC recommendations have also focused on mobile device security, changes to our consumer complaint intake and reporting, as well as education campaigns for the DTV transition. While the CPAAC is a bit of a rebrand, it's actually a return to the Commission's initial charter for its first Federal Advisory Committee 25 years ago. The Consumer Disability Telecommunications Advisory Committee. That committee was tasked with providing recommendations on access by people with disabilities, consumer protection and education, and the impact of new and emerging technologies. The challenges you will explore are different, but the value of your perspectives remain the same. As always, opportunities to impact the work of the Commission lie ahead, and your engagement in the CPAAC ensures that the FCC can continue to be well-informed on consumer protection and accessibility concerns of the community. I'm pleased to introduce the new CPAAC co-chairs, Elizabeth Hill of the National Association of State Agencies of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and Logan Colas of the American Consumer Institute. Their combined experience and dedication will undoubtedly drive the CPAAC towards new heights. To the members, thank you all for being a part of this important work, and I look forward to the CPAAC's success. Before handing the meeting back over to Logan and Elizabeth, I want to plug the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division's upcoming webinar on September 18th at 2 p.m. Topics discussed will include truth in billing, the Missing and Endangered Persons Emergency Alert Codes, and the Safe Connections Act. I also want to take a moment to introduce a new member of CGB's team that will be working closely with DRO on accessibility issues. Lisa Edwards has joined my front office as a Deputy Bureau Chief. Lisa came to the FCC in 2022, and prior to her time at the Commission, she spent over 3 decades at the Department of Justice in the Civil Rights Division. Lisa has been an incredible addition to our team, and I'm excited for all of you to have the opportunity to work with her on these important issues. I'd also like to extend my thanks to multiple Commission staff who have worked hard to make this meeting possible. Susie Rosen-Singleton, Chief of the Disability Rights Office, Kayla Hernandez-Ujoa, Acting Chief of the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division, the 2 co-designated federal officers, or DFOs, David Perez and Josh Mendelson, and 2 CPAAC liaisons, Molly Bergdorf and Dave Savaline. My thanks also go to Amy Kresap, the FCC's Section 504 compliance officer, the interpreters and captioners, Commission meeting room staff, and many FCC staff volunteers spread throughout the room who are helping to make today's meeting a success. And with all of that, I will pass it back over to Logan.
Thank you. I speak on behalf of the CPAAC when I say that we are thankful for everyone's remarks this morning. My name is Logan Colas. I am your co-chair, along with Elizabeth Hill, who is sitting over to my right. I direct technology policy for the American Consumer Institute. I'm absolutely pleased to be here, and welcome to the CPAAC. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Elizabeth for some remarks.
Good morning, and thank you, Logan. It's a pleasure to serve with you as co-chair of this committee. I did want to welcome everyone here today, and thank you so much for coming. I do want to introduce myself. I serve on the board for the National Association of State Agencies Serving Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I know that is a long title, but it is NASADHH. I am a board member at large, but it is an honor to be representing that organization here today. That organization is a group of state directors for the deaf and hard of hearing all across the country. We do have an annual meeting, a policy summit, to discuss common challenges and opportunities, and to collaborate as a group of state directors. I'd like to begin with roll call. If you can, please do introduce yourself with your name, your organization, who is serving as your alternate, and maybe give just a brief summary of your organization and how it relates to accessibility or consumer protections. I will add that my alternate, Dr. Darlene Zingara from Minnesota is my alternate, as for my organization. If you have any ethical disclosures, please do feel free to share them during roll call. I will start on my left with Logan. Thank you.
Logan Colas. I am with the American Consumer Institute. My alternate would be Tirza Duran, who's the president of the American Consumer Institute. ACI has a long history of involvement in telecom policy, dating back to significant involvement in the CAAC from Steve Poziesk, who is our chairman and founder. So I look forward to working with everyone, and I'll go ahead and toss it to my left.
Good morning. My name's David Bettis. I'm the co-DFO along with Josh Mendelson. And I'm just also going to give a couple housekeeping items before we go around, such as how to use the mic and not to use it. And then we'll continue with the roll call. We're going to take a few minutes on these housekeeping protocols. If you need restrooms, you just leave this doors. They're on the left and the right, as well as water fountains. For fire exits, in case of an emergency, please evacuate through the main doors, then security, passing that security and through the front entrance. If that exit's not available, please evacuate through a side door onto the rear exit. FCC staff can assist you during emergencies or at any time throughout the meeting. Meals and beverages, as you saw, are over there. We added some water, coffee, pastries. Please know the beverages are for the CPAAC members and the staff supporting the meeting. Thank you, Apple Inc., for providing the food and beverages. During the meeting, we ask that one person use the mic at a time. And if you wish to speak, please raise your please raise your tent card like this, and then the chairs will call on you. And when you're done speaking, just lower it back down. Also, please wait for a moment for the camera to focus on you, and then identify yourself and your organization before you speak. Please pace yourself and take pauses. When you're done with your part, restore the tent card. When using the microphone, please push this button here with a little person on it, and it will turn red. When it's red, that means your mic is on. When you're done, of course, please press it to deactivate it. If you're sharing the mic and need to move it, please only move with the base. Don't use the stem, it might break off. So, thank you. Thank you so much, and I'm gonna pass it over to my co-DFO, Josh Mendelson.
Hello, I am Josh Mendelson. I am one of the co-DFOs for this Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'm also an attorney with the Disability Rights Office, which is within the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau within the FCC. It's good to see all of you. This meeting is open to the public and is being live streamed. That is at www.fcc.gov/live. It is also on the Commission's YouTube page. Public participation is welcome, and we will have an open mic towards the end of this meeting. That will be for members of the public to come up and ask questions or to make comments. We're also accepting questions and comments through email. That is at livequestions@fcc.gov. So please, if you have a question or a comment, please email that email address. Please email before 11:30. At 11:30, we will try our best to address it. Since this is the first meeting of the term, and as co-chair Elizabeth Hill mentioned, our General Counsel office does require that each representative make disclosures if they have any. That means during roll call, please introduce yourself, introduce your alternates by name, and then make any necessary ethical disclosures if you have any. Do that both for yourself as well as for your alternate. So for example, you may have a financial interest with X company. You don't have to say you have $2 million with them, right? Just say you have financial interests with a specific company. You do need to disclose specific board of director or task force positions, especially for organizations which are also represented on the CPAAC. Any quick questions for David or myself before we turn it over to Elizabeth for roll call? Elizabeth. Okay, thank you, Josh. This is Elizabeth. Thank you for the housekeeping. Thank you, David, for additional housekeeping measures as well. We will get started with roll call. Again, please introduce yourself, your alternate, your organization, a brief description about your organization, and any ethical disclosures you may have. I will begin to the left of David then with Kayla Hernandez. And I can't see your last name.
That is perfectly fine. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Hernandez Ulloa. I am the acting chief for the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division. Happy to be here today. Thank you to everyone who helped put this meeting together today, including David and Josh, and everybody who is on the FCC staff. I will now pass it over to the next speaker to my left, Corlett.
Good morning. Thank you. So my name is Coralette Hannon. I'm with AARP. I serve as the director of the Livable Communities team in Government Affairs. My alternate is Tim Morstad. He also works in Government Affairs at AARP. We do not have any disclosures for today, but for anyone who does not know AARP, we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that represents the interests of older adults age 50 plus. We fight to protect and preserve policies that allow older adults to live independently and choose how they live as they age, which includes communication services and access.
Good morning, everybody. I am Claire Stanley. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs for the American Council of the Blind. We are a membership organization of persons who are blind or low vision from across the country. The alternate is our Executive Director, Scott Thornhill, and we're excited to be here. We were part of the Disability Advisory Committee, I believe, for its entire existence, so we're excited to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Megan Ann Stahl, and I'm the Senior Manager of Government Relations and Regulatory for Apple. My alternate is James Craig, Accessibility Standards Manager for Apple. I do have a disclosure that I have a financial interest in my previous employer, Google, who's also going to be a member of this committee. In case anyone is not familiar with Apple, we are a consumer hardware company and also create content that keeps everyone in mind from the design phase onward. We build in features to help people to create and connect in innovative ways, whether it's through our iPhone or iPad features or our clinical grade hearing aid features on our AirPods Pro 2 and some of the things that we announced yesterday. Thanks for having us on the committee, and great to see everyone.
Hi, good morning. My name is Angela Diaz, representative for AT&T. My secondary is Susan Matsuri. She's been working in the field for a long time. She's my policy counterpart. I work at AT&T's federal regulatory team. We don't have any disclosures at the moment. And for those of you who might not have heard of AT&T, we are a small phone provider. Just kidding. We are a telephone service provider and have long served with the commission on many councils and are happy to be here again. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I am Tom Ledkowski with Comcast NBC Universal. We have a few different alternates. One with me today is Sean Durkin, our Director of Product Accessibility. We also have Hannah Leppo, who is a Senior Counsel in our regulatory group at NBC Universal, and Richard Wyckoff, who is our Principal Engineer in Product Development, and Richard also serves on the board of the SIP Forum. Comcast NBC Universal is a media and technology company with a rich history in accessibility, more than 13 plus years, and we are happy to participate on the CPAAC, and we're past members of the DAC.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Nemeth, and I am with the Consumer Technology Association. Our alternate is David Grossman. No disclosures for either of us. We are both members of CTA's Government Affairs team. CTA is the largest technology trade association in North America, and many folks know us from our show CES. And we also regularly engage in policy issues related to both consumer protection and accessibility. And we have a long history of serving both on the Consumer Advisory Committee and Disability Advisory Committee. So we are glad to be here today. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Christian Segura. I'm with the CTIA. Our alternate is Courtney Tellerico, who's in the audience. We're both on the regulatory team at CTIA. CTIA represents the U.S. wireless communications industry and the companies throughout the mobile ecosystem, including wireless providers or small telephone companies like Angela's, device manufacturers, and suppliers. Where CTI has been very proud to be a member of the Disability Advisory Committee and the CAC as well. But for the DAC, since its inception, we were also instrumental in developing and launching the Hearing Aid Compatibility Task Force, which is a multi-year effort, which I know a number of folks in this room were a part of, laying out the pathway to 100% hack. Thank you to everyone who pulled this meeting together, and I look forward to participating.
Hi, good morning. My name is Joel Thayer. I sit as the president of the Digital Progress Institute. For those who I'm almost certainly are unfamiliar with us, we are a bipartisan org that focuses almost exclusively on advancing full stack frameworks that basically holistic approaches to internet regulation to protect all consumers and entrepreneurs in the internet ecosystem. We also support ubiquitous broadband, which I think includes disability access, also strong leans towards consumer protection. My alternate, I believe, is Nick Pagani. If it's not, he knows now. So, but very much appreciate the opportunity to participate here and look forward to working with all of you on this and doing this important work. So, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Taylor Absher, and I'm a policy advisor and attorney for Encompass. My alternate is Christopher L. Shipley, who is the executive director of public policy, and we both do not have ethical disclosures today. Encompass is the Internet and Competitive Networks Association, and since 1981, the association has been advocating for a competitive communications marketplace, which has shifted a little bit over time. I know that Encompass has proudly participated in many advisory committees. However, this is my first committee that I will be participating in. So I'm really excited to share my perspective, but also equally excited to learn as much as possible from all of my colleagues here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joshua Paila, and I'm representing the National Association of Broadcasters. My alternate is Larry Walk, who's here today. NAB represents local television and radio broadcasters serving their local communities with news and entertainment in local communities across the country. We're excited to be here to work with this committee. For the ethical disclosure, my day job is as an officer for NAB member Gray Media, Inc., which owns local television stations in 113 markets across the U.S., and a closed captioning company called Dynamic Captioning. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tina Metzer, co-founder of National Center for Resource Development and Rural Rise. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. We were a member as well last year. And Rural Rise and National Center for Resource Development, we really focus on working with organizations and communities across America, do a lot of work with Rural Rise in rural America, providing a voice to those communities. And we sincerely believe that location should not be a detriment or a challenge for prosperity in America. Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning, everybody. I'll just wait for the camera to find me. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody. My name is Zainab El-Kebsi. I'm Chief Policy Officer with Deaf Equality. My alternate is Howard Rosenblum. And Deaf Equality is a nonprofit organization that advocates for equal communication rights for deaf and hard of hearing people. I do have a few disclosures to share. I serve on 3 boards of directors. One is for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Bar Association and the Deaf Hard of Hearing Consumer Advocacy Network and Access SOS. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody who organized today's meeting.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Olivia Wine. I'm a senior attorney at the National Consumer Law Center. I focus on low-income consumer access to telecom, energy, and water services. My alternate is Margot Saunders. The National Consumer Law Center is a low-income consumer nonprofit organization focused on consumer protections in a variety of settings, including financial services and access to utility services. I have served on prior FCC consumer advisory committees, and I do have a few disclosures for myself in terms of boards. I serve on the Universal Service Administrative Company's Board of Directors, but am not here in that capacity, so I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of USAC or its Board of Directors. And I also serve on the board of the National Energy and Utility Affordability Coalition. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pam Arluck. I work in the legal department of NCTA, the Internet and Television Association. I have two alternates, Radhika Bhatt and Kyle Dixon. They both work with me in the legal department of NCTA. We have one disclosure. Kyle's significant other has a financial interest in Meta. NCTA is the association that represents both cable operators across the country and also programmers. And we have been members of both the CAC and the DAC for a number of years. But I have not been on either committee, so I'm very much looking forward to working with everyone. And thank you so much for having us.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Berlin. I am Executive Director of Project Goal, the project to get older adults online. I work on aging and technology, everything from promoting the adoption of broadband services for older adults to looking at the entire world of aging and technology, the benefits and challenges of the online space for older adults. I have several disclosures to talk about. First of all, I am on the board of the National Consumers League, which representative is on this committee. I am also on the board and an officer for the Future of Privacy Forum. And I'm also president of Consumer Policy Solutions, and I have one client, AT&T. I provide mostly services for their consumer advisory panel. I also appreciate your history, Ed, about this consumer advisory committee and how we have reformed with the Disability Advisory Committee. I served on a formation of that committee 20 years ago, so it's great to see us all back together again. And perhaps I should also disclose, although I wasn't asked to, that I am a longstanding member of AARP for my $12.50 a year. I won't say how many years, though. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Breitmeyer. I'm the president of the Rural Community College Alliance. I had to read that to make sure I got it right. I've been in this job for about a year. There are no alternates, so you're stuck with me. What we do at the Rural Community College Alliance is represent the interests of rural community colleges, obviously, their students and the communities that they serve, primarily interested in making sure that all students have access to an education that is affordable and quality. And so I'm very interested to be part of this group.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carl Gerner. I am Corporate Counsel and T-Mobile's Federal Regulatory Affairs team. My alternate is Dennis Selnick, Senior Accessibility Compliance Manager, here in the audience with us today. T-Mobile is a national wireless carrier, and I have not been on an advisory committee previously. However, we have had the pleasure of serving on both the CAC and the DAC as a company previously. and neither Dennis nor I have disclosures at this time.
Good morning. It's good to see so many familiar faces here. I will pause and allow Diana to introduce herself before me.
Good morning. I'm sorry, work emergency. I'm Diana Eisner with US Telecom, the Broadband Association. I'm Vice President of Legal and Regulatory Affairs. I work on a whole host of issues that all of our friends at the FCC are so helpful with for all of us, and we're really excited to be here, and we're excited this group has been reconstituted, so thank you.
And I am Ian Dillner. I am with Verizon. I work in the public policy organization at Verizon, focused on a lot of federal regulatory matters, including accessibility matters and consumer matters. Also representing Verizon here in this group is Zach Bastian, who is sitting immediately behind me. And Zach also works in the public policy organization. We've been a member of the DAC for many, many terms, and several iterations ago were members of the Consumer Advisory Committee as well. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Susie Rosen Singleton. I'm Division Chief for the Disability Rights Office in the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Warm welcome to everyone here. I will turn it back over. This is Liz. I would like to now provide an opportunity for those who have just arrived from the American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD. If you would please introduce yourself, your name your alternate, share a little bit of information about your organization, and any ethical disclosures you may have. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry for being late. I'm Maitreya Shah. I work with the American Association of People with Disabilities, and I'm the alternate. The primary for our organization is Michael Lewis. AAPD is a national disability-led and cross-disability organization working for the political and economic power of all people with disabilities. And we work on several different technology policy areas, telecom, broadband access, and assistive technology being one of the primary focus areas for us. And I have no ethical disclosures to make at this point. Thank you.
Elizabeth, I want to let you know we have one person online. I don't know if the IT can let them speak.
Good morning. Can you hear me? My name is Eden Ishil. I'm here on behalf of the National Consumers League. Our primary representative is John Brayo. I wish I could be there in person, but I am under the weather at the moment. And thank you to the staff who made this meeting possible.
I would like now to call upon Zainab, interpreter correction, Tina Metzger.
Thank you. I believe I forgot to mention that my alternate is online as well, Dr. Charles Terrell, and he's a former community college president, and he serves as an advisor for Rural Rise.
My apologies. I forgot to. Sorry. My apologies. I forgot to make my disclosure. I have an immediate family member with a financial interest in one of the nationwide wireless providers.
Is there anyone else? Okay, we would now like to proceed to the FCC's accessibility updates. I have the tremendous honor of introducing now Susie Rosen Singleton. Susie is Chief of the Disability Rights Office in the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. She's here to provide an update on the FCC's accessibility work. Once Susie has finished her remarks, I believe Michael will also be sharing alongside her. We will then have an opportunity for questions following their presentation. Thank you, Susie. This is Susie. Thank you, Elizabeth. And to my right, Michael Scott and I will be providing a brief overview, a bit more about the FCC's accessibility work. We do have slides, if it's possible to display them on the monitor. Thank you. If you could back up one slide, please. Accessibility is important. We'll just have to wait a moment. If we could turn the slides off, please. If we could remove the presentation from the monitor, I would like to introduce, and have the honor to do so, Chairman Brendan Carr, who is here with us today to share his remarks.
Usually I do this sitting down so that when the tomatoes start to fly, I can move faster, but I'll see if I can do it seated as well. Well, first of all, so good to see so many of you returning to this sort of renamed, refocused advisory committee. You know, when we were putting this group together, the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee, I was talking to one of my talented legal advisors, Danielle Thuman, and she kept saying, "This is the greatest of all committees." I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, this is the absolute GOAT of committees." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, it's called the CPAAC. It has to be the GOAT committee." I was like, "I don't know, Danielle. That's a little bit rough joke, but we'll go with it. We'll see if it goes over." So let me begin, though, in all seriousness, by recognizing the newly appointed co-chairs of the committee, Elizabeth Hill and Logan Colas. Thank you to both of you for stepping up to lead this important initiative. I'd also like to thank our designated federal officers, David Perez and Joshua Mendelson. Thank you for your service with this committee. I also want to express my thanks to all of the committee members for joining me here today. You represent a just tremendous range of experience and expertise, something that you'd expect from the GOATs, from disability rights and accessibility advocacy. I'm just going to beat that joke till it's, got nothing left in it. I don't think it started with anything, but we'll see. But we got representatives, obviously, from disability rights and accessibility advocacy to broadband deployment to innovations in communications technology. Here at the FCC, we see this CPAAC as more than just another advisory committee. We intend to position this committee as a bridge, connecting the FCC's policymaking work with your real-world insight. And we appreciate all the time and devotion that you bring to this. After all, each and every one of you, I say this at all of our advisory committees, but each and every one of you do have very big, very important day jobs, and you're taking this on top of that. So I really personally appreciate what you're doing. The CPAAC also reflects something serious. It's the FCC's strong commitment to modernizing our consumer protection rules and tackling the challenges of today and tomorrow, not just yesterday. To that end, the committee will begin its work by focusing on two of probably the most pressing consumer issues the FCC faces today: the scourge of illegal robocalls and promoting accessibility in modern communications. first up, of course, is robocalls. Robocalls are an all too common frustration and threat to American households. They disrupt our evenings. Increasingly, they are used to defraud many Americans. They are something that just interrupts almost every single aspect of our daily lives. I know for myself, I'll be sitting at the dais during an open commission meeting, getting some robocalls. Whether it's spoof numbers, pretending to be from a local business, or relentless calls that target vulnerable communities, the FCC and consumers alike are fed up, and we're all taking action. While there's no silver bullet, the FCC is driving forward on multiple fronts. What we're doing is we are reinvigorating the FCC's work at every single point in the call cycle of robocalls. We're working right at the outset to stop bad actors from ever being able to originate these calls, including looking at ways to make it harder to get and maintain access to numbering resources. We're pushing carriers, once those calls are made, to block more of illegal robocalls before they ever reach consumers. When it gets to your phone, we're providing consumers with more tools to decide what types of calls they actually want to answer and which they don't. We're accelerating the IP transition, which has the added benefit of making it harder for illegal robocallers to mask their identity. And finally, on the back end, we're working to increase our enforcement efforts, including by taking actions that effectively prohibit voice service providers from connecting or maintaining their connections to the U.S. telephone network. If carriers aren't doing their part to mitigate robocalls, including taking proactive steps to know their customers, again, an area where I think you're seeing a lot more vigorous FCC enforcement, then they're not going to be able to do business in this country very long. Our first CPAAC working group will contribute to these efforts and evaluate additional robocall mitigation efforts, including what conditions most contribute to the problem of illegal robocalls today, and how the FCC can build on prior efforts to put more robocall fighting tools in the hands of consumers. Next up, accessibility. The Communications Act tasks the FCC with ensuring that telecom services are accessible and usable by individuals with disabilities. I'm grateful that throughout the years, the FCC has been able to play a key role in the advancement of accessibility. But today, our challenge is different. Technology continues to evolve at a rapid pace, from smartphones and video conferencing to AI. The way we communicate has changed, but our rules haven't always kept up. That's why our second working group will focus on how technology shifts are impacting the disability community, and where the FCC's rules may need to be modernized to reflect the new landscape. In closing, I want to thank each and every one of you again for your service and for your commitment. I look forward to your insights and the important contributions that CPAAC will make in the months and years ahead. And I expect a lot of wins of the Tom Brady of advisory committees. I'll be here all week. Thanks.
I'd like to take a moment to thank Chairman Brendan Carr for joining us this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your remarks and for being here with us today. I would now like to turn the floor back over to Susie Rosen-Singleton and Michael Scott. I do believe we will need a moment to pull up the PowerPoint slides. And again, we will have opportunities at the end of their presentation for questions. Thank you. Susie and Michael. Thank you, Liz. Oh, wonderful. Thank you to the CMR staff for making that possible. I do believe this is the first time I've seen a video on the monitor with the slide deck. We're very thrilled that we are able to have the chairman here with us today to share his remarks. Michael and I are here to provide an overview of the FCC's accessibility work. As you've heard, we'll have a working group focused specifically on accessibility. Now, with this being the inaugural meeting, I see some new faces in the room, as well as some who are joining us online, maybe new as well. I would, for that reason, like to take this opportunity to provide you with a brief overview of our work. Next slide, please. In short, what you see on the screen is a Venn diagram containing three main areas which we focus on here at the FCC. These areas under our purview are video programming, emergency communications, and modern communications. We'll delve a bit more into the substantive information of those areas and share a bit about how they overlap as well. A key law in enforcing and overseeing the information here is the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act of 2010. Would also like to recognize that we have another deputy chief as part of our team. He unfortunately couldn't join us today. He is Will Shell, and as Ed has already mentioned, we did want to give a shout out to the new deputy chief for CGB, Lisa Edwards, here in the room. There you are. Thank you, Lisa. Welcome. Very warm welcome. Lisa joined in July. With that, I will now turn it over to Michael for the first substantive slide. Next slide, please.
Oh, neat. I get to be on screen too. I should pause to say, do we need to get the interpreter back on screen actually?
Thank you.
Oh, neat.
It's blocking the screen, but it's still pretty readable.
I think. All right, thank you. I think we can. I think this will work. So hello, my name is Michael Scott. I am the other deputy chief in the Disability Rights Office. I will let you all decide whether it is Will or I who is the Tom Brady of deputy chiefs in the Disability Rights Office. It's probably Will. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our area of modern communications that accessibility plays an important role of. First up is advanced communication services. So under Section 716 of the Communication Act, which was adopted as part of the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, the CPAAC, advanced communication services, including interconnected and non-interconnected voice over internet protocol services, electronic messaging services, and interoperable video conferencing services must be made accessible to and usable by people with disabilities, unless not achievable. I'll move a little closer to the microphone. I feel I'm soft-spoken at the moment. So interoperable video conferencing services is an issue where we've most recently made some changes. So upcoming in January of 2027 will be compliance with some recently amended rules that require video conferencing services, to include captioning, access to sign language interpreters, and user interface controls that allow users to adjust the display of captions, speakers, signers, and other features for which user control is necessary for accessibility. We also have an open rulemaking associated with that last item, where we will consider additional issues related to other accessibility features such as text-to-speech and speech-to-speech functionality, automatic sign language interpretation, audio description, and other features possibly needed by people with cognitive and mobility disabilities. So next on our list is direct video calling. Direct video calling allows people who use sign language to communicate directly with others over video devices without the need for a relay service agent. Specifically, it allows individuals who might be using video relay services for call communication or just a direct video connection to reach customer service agencies to an agent who is also a native sign language interpreter to provide more direct communication. Next is hearing aid compatibility. So FCC rules require that wireless phones and other devices that use radio frequency signals for voice communications be compatible with hearing aids and cochlear implants. Most recently, in October of 2024, the FCC adopted a mandate for 100% of future wireless handset models to offer for sale or use in the U.S. to be hearing aid compatible after a transition period. All new wireless handset models offered for sale or use in the U.S. by manufacturers after December 14th of 2026 are required to be hearing aid compatible. By 2028, the same will apply to all nationwide service providers and non-nationwide service providers as well. The FCC also sets technical standards and minimum deployment benchmarks for hearing aid compatible devices. Next, with real-time text, the FCC requires, well, real-time text is a standards and protocol for communication, and we require wireless phone companies and manufacturers to support real-time text for people with disabilities if they choose not to support TTYs. Real-time text allows users to send and receive text messages as they are typed without requiring a separate app or service. You can try out real-time text on your wireless device. It's usually found in the accessibility menus under settings if you haven't tried it yet. It works best over IP connections and is part of the transition of technology that we are looking to do away from more traditional copper-based services like TTY. Relay services. So there are currently 6 forms of relay services supported by the Interstate Fund as overseen by the Commission: VRS, IP relay, caption telephone service, both a traditional form and an internet protocol form, and traditional TTY relay, and speech-to-speech services. TRS services are provided for functionally, sorry, I misread something that I wrote there, I'm sorry. So TRS are services to provide functionally equivalent communication for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, deafblind, or who have a speech disability. In overseeing the program, the Commission addresses a number of administrative matters as well as policy issues. We strive to ensure the program continues to evolve to meet our statutory obligations of ensuring the provision of TRS in the most efficient manner possible. With regard to technology transitions, DRO's works with other bureaus in the Commission to ensure that technology transitions, such as changing networks from analog to digital, from copper to fiber, and from TDM to internet protocol, do not create accessibility concerns for consumers who use legacy devices such as TTY and analog caption telephones in the short run, and for a smooth consumer transition from the older analog-based services to IP-based services in the long run. Finally, I'll talk about telecommunication services and equipment. Under Section 255 of the Communications Act, we are required that telecommunication services and equipment be accessible to and usable by people with disabilities unless not readily achievable. Accessibility requirements include, for example, voicemail, interactive voice response systems, and compatibility with peripheral devices commonly used by people with disabilities. All right, now I'll turn it back over to Susie for the next slide.
Would you show the next slide, please? Thank you. Thank you, Michael. This is the second area. As I mentioned earlier, the 3 areas under our purview. I would like to emphasize that our work is in close collaboration with other bureaus across the agency. For example, in emergency access, we work very closely with Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, or PSHSB. We collaborate, and that is true for many of those that you will see. We work very closely with other bureaus, such as the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, on hearing aid compatibility matters and so forth. We do really consider ourselves a hub, if you will. So we work very closely with other bureaus as well, and did want to share that point. Now, back to emergency communications and notification. You'll see 2 categories on the screen for emergency notifications. We work very closely to ensure that accessibility is present in those categories. First, in 911 and 988. I'm sure that's you're no stranger to those 2. We work very closely to ensure there are text to 911 capabilities, voice relay, as well as other means as appropriate, relay and so forth. TTY. We do also have 4988 purposes, which is the Suicide and Crisis Help Hotline. We have direct video calling, DVC, for ASL consumers. It is not yet available for 911, but we do foresee that it will be considered for NG 911 purposes. And I will mention shortly an item that is open for comment on direct video calling for NG 911. Before I go to that topic, I would like to work through these topics and share 2 highlights in recent items that were released, seeking comments about those areas of emergency access. On to notifications. We know it's so important, as you all know, if there is an emergency in your area. We are working very closely to ensure that EAS, the emergency alert system, as well as wireless emergency alerts and emergency information on TV are all accessible in meeting accessibility requirements to ensure that everyone receives the information they need to. And we'll move through these topics a bit quickly. There is plenty of information on our website. I just wanted to give you a bit of a flavor of the scope of our work. 2 items I would like to highlight. 1, August 7th, we adopted a notice of proposed rulemaking to re-examine the emergency alert system and wireless emergency alerts, and to do so from the ground up. This is to determine how to make those life-saving systems more effective, efficient, and able to serve the public's needs. The comment period will close October 10th. So you do still have some time to share comments, either online or here in person in the room. We'll be looking at how to enhance accessibility for those 2 ecosystems. For example, font sizes, text-to-speech, and so forth. So again, the comment period will close October 10th. The second item I would like to spotlight was March 28th. We released an FNPRM, a further notice of proposed rulemaking, on next generation 911, NG 911, and to ensure the resiliency, reliability, interoperability, and accessibility of NG 911. So specifically, on the area of accessibility, we are looking at how to ensure that we are able to support interoperability for non-voice 911 services, with a special emphasis on text, video, and multimedia capabilities that support 911 access for people with disabilities. Now, how can we have interoperable text messaging protocols, for example, RCS, Rich Communication Services, for text to 911 calls? And the accessibility of sign language communication for NG 911, which includes a variety of relay services, video relay services, 3-way video relay services with 911, sign language interpreters, and 911 call agents. We also have direct video calling, which is a communication between a sign language user and a 911 call center call handler who is fluent in sign language and is trained in handling emergency calls as another area of focus. So I did want to highlight the accessibility issue here. The comment period on that will close September 17th. With that, we'll move on to the third area under our purview, and I'll turn it back over to Michael.
All right, thank you, Susie. If we could move to the next slide. Thank you. So our next area is video programming. So for those unfamiliar, I'll start with audio description, which is an audio narrated description of a television program's key visual elements. Those descriptions are inserted into natural pauses in the program's dialogue. Audio description makes television programming more accessible to individuals who are blind or visually impaired. And it's currently required on top 4 broadcast stations for the top 110 of 110 of 210 markets. We extend into 10 additional DMAs per year, and it's a continuing phase-in until we reach that final 210 in January of 2035. Closed captioning comes, we have a varying jurisdiction over closed captioning. On television, generally, all programming needs to be closed captioned with some exceptions. Over the internet, programs need to be closed captions generally only if it's first shown on television in the U.S. with captions. Full-length video programming needs to include captions, while clips need to show them only if a video programmer owns the website or the app on which they're being shown on. For closed caption settings, the Commission not too long ago adopted a third report and order that required manufacturers to cover the apparatus and multi-channel video programming distributors to make closed captioning display settings readily accessible to individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. The order gives manufacturers and multi-channel video programming distributors the flexibility to decide how they meet the readily accessible standard. And then for TV set-top box controls, accessibility requirements apply to TVs and other devices designed to receive or playback video programming, including computers, tablets, and smartphones with pre-installed video players or pre-installed applications for watching video programs. Set-top boxes used to watch cable, satellite, and fiber video programming subscription services also need to ensure the program guide and menus are accessible. Okay. With that, we'll go to our next slide, and I'll turn it back over to Susie.
Perfect, thank you. Now, we've explained the three different areas of our focus. Of course, there is more, but this is just a big picture overview. I do think it's also important for us to emphasize how we engage with our stakeholders, with all of you, and more. On the screen, there are a number of items listed that we consider a priority, things that we can work together on to ensure that we have robust implementation and understanding as well as awareness about our rules. So with that, I'd like to start first with the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee, where we sit right now. Thank you all so much for being a part of this very important initiative. We also very recently had the Chairman's Awards for Advancements in Accessibility, also known as the AAA. We were able to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we're also able to recognize leadership in the field of accessibility. We have the ASL Consumer Support Line, which is a flagship program. I do believe a few of you have your own ASL lines as well. I applaud you for that. It is really important to be able to communicate directly with your consumers. We also have ASL Video Library and to provide information in American Sign Language, and we continue to build upon it. We have the National Deafblind Equipment Distribution Program, NDB-EDP. That is a $10 million program that is mandated by the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act to distribute equipment as well as necessary services to eligible low-income deaf and blind individuals across 56 states and territories. So you will have them in your states wherever you may be. This program is also known as I Can Connect. We have a complaint system to assist in resolving any accessibility-related concerns and work with all stakeholders to reach consensus and resolution. We have an electronic comment filing system, and we encourage everyone to file comments on open rulemakings. We have the Consumer and Small Businesses Guides, where we explain in layperson language about the rules that we have implemented, those we have in place. We have the Accessibility Clearinghouse, which is at fcc.gov/ACH. It is mandated by the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act to provide the public with information about equipment that may best fit their accessibility needs. Well, we have a variety of different types of links housed there, including CTIAs, Access Wireless Org, interpreter correction, accesswireless.org, that they run for accessible equipment, including wireless phones and so forth. So thank you for that. And we'll connect you with several resources that are available through the Accessibility Clearinghouse. We also have on occasion roundtable forums. It does depend on the topic du jour. But I did want to just make sure that we have stakeholders' input on a variety of different topics. If there's a topic we'd like more input on, for example, audio descriptions and making them more available for streaming, we had a forum for that. And it was very helpful to have that information. And then last but not least, we have Access Infos. Access Info is a listserv that is subscription-based, so you can be apprised of our FCC's accessibility work. And we do welcome continued communications. If you'd like to meet with us, we can meet here in person or remotely. We do look forward to continuing to collaborate with our stakeholders. And I'll turn it back over to Michael for the final slide.
Thank you, Susie. If we can get the, there we are. Thank you. So our final slide is just on our FCC accessibility resources. So you can, if you have an online complaint, you can submit that at fcc.gov/accessibility-complaints. If you'd like to submit an online comment for any proceeding, that can certainly be submitted at fcc.gov/ECFS/filings. If you'd like to visit the FCC Disability Rights webpage, you can visit us at fcc.gov/accessibility, or you can contact the FCC DRO at dro@fcc.gov. It's our email address. Our video phone, which can be reached at 844-432-2275. Our voice line, which can be reached at 202-418-2517. And of course, you can subscribe to the Access Info at accessinfo@fcc.gov. Thank you, and we appreciate your time today and welcome any questions you may have.
Members of the committee, we now have an opportunity for questions. If anyone has questions for our presenters, we have approximately 10 minutes. And members of the public will have an opportunity to comment at a later time. For now, we'd like to open it up to questions from the members. If you have any, please do raise your tent card upright in front of you. Seeing none, I'd like to take a moment to thank Susie and Michael. Thank you so much for the information you've shared today. We very much appreciate it. We do have an opportunity now to take a 5-minute break. If you need to use the restroom, again, they are exit the room to the left or the right, just down the hall. There's also water available. Thank you.
Welcome back from break, and welcome back to the GOAT advisory committees. It's great to see everybody again. At this time, I do think that we've had a couple people that have come in during roll call, so I'm going to just hand it over here in a second to Jonathan. And I think we have one more online to introduce themselves, say who they're with, note any conflicts of interest, and then say who their alternate may be. Thank you. So Jonathan, please.
Testing, just making sure I got the mic on. Hi, everyone. Jonathan Mark, I'm representing Google. together with my alternate Eve Anderson, who is the director of our Products for All at Google. Neither of us have financial interest to disclose. Google's very excited to participate in this committee. We have many touch points with accessibility, including our consumer devices, making sure that they're accessible to all, and just going along with our mission to make sure that the world's information is accessible to all.
And I think we have one online as well.
Good morning. My name is Lily Genghis. I'm the Chief Tech Community Officer of the Caper Foundation. We focus on making sure technology is accessible to all the communities, specifically working and making sure that it's equitable across. And we do research grants as well as different types of reaching the community. No conflict of interest in mine. I'm part of the board of a nonprofit out in California, but that's about it. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, welcome back from break. I hope everybody got some refreshments, coffee and water. Just as a reminder to everyone here that this committee is open to the public, and you can submit questions that you have, questions or comments to live questions at fcc.gov, and that is questions with an S at the end. It's plural, live questions at fcc.gov. Those will not be addressed immediately, but we do have a public comment Q&A section that we will be addressing comments during that time. So at this time, I'd like to move on to the FCC consumer protection updates. And I would like to call on Kayla Hernandez-Ulloa, Acting Chief, Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division of the CGB, to give some FCC consumer protection updates.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kayla Hernandez-Ulloa. I'm the Acting Chief of the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division, also known as CAOD. First, I'd like to start off by thanking my team for everything that they have done to help organize this meeting today, including my Deputy Chief, Sherry Dawson, who is right there in the room. So for those of you that are not familiar with CAOD, we are one of several divisions within the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, or CGB for short. We serve as the public face of the Commission as we develop and implement a lot of the consumers' policies dictated by the Commission, and this also includes the coordinating of the sign language interpreters when requested for Commission events. COD also develops and implements consumer outreach campaigns that include education policies, goals, and objectives, and ensures that the Commission has the benefit of a wide spectrum of information and viewpoints in its decision-making process. COD plans, develops, and conducts consumer outreach and education initiatives that also inform the public about consumer-related regulatory programs. We also work very closely within the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau to achieve a lot of our outreach in coordination with some of the offices that you see represented here. This includes the Disability Rights Office, our Web Print and Publishing Division, our Consumer Policy Division, and our Consumer Inquiries and Complaints Division. COD is always seeking to engage and develop new partnerships and also maintain our existing partnerships with organizations that advocate for and serve consumers. This includes collaborations with a lot of our existing partners and is not limited to the following activities that I will mention. We also do some presentations on a lot of the FCC resources, including, and this was mentioned before, the electronic comments filing system. What we do with that is we advise organizations that work with consumers when there is a notice of proposed rulemaking, for example, where there are comment publics that are being sought by the FCC. We manage requests for subject matter experts to participate in events such as webinars and conferences. We are always expanding our contacts list, and anyone who is interested in joining that listserv can email outreach@fcc.gov. What we do with this listserv is we take information that is important and affects consumers and advise our contacts so that they can also distribute this information to their communities. We also deliver hard copies of our consumer-facing materials to distribute to your communities. Many of our materials covered topics that were already discussed today, but I'd like to make emphasis. This includes robocalls, spoofing, protecting mobile devices, emergency communications, understanding phone bill, and we also share the Disability Rights Office accessibility tip card. We schedule information sessions and tours for students, mostly college students, but we also do this for the K through 12 community. We also can work with your organizations to have a representative participate in your regularly scheduled meetings, such as weekly or monthly meetings, where we provide updates on topics or topics of interest. Presentations recently include those on robocall updates using most recent commission meeting released information. And of course, for those that are interested in tips, we have lots of them that we share during our presentations. Anyone who is interested in meeting with the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division to discuss related opportunities for outreach, please send an email to outreach@fcc.gov. Mentioned before, but I'd like to emphasize now, is everyone here in the room and those watching us online are invited to our upcoming consumer protection webinar scheduled for Thursday, September 18th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. And it is still not too late to register for this event. You can register and obtain more information by emailing outreach@fcc.gov. During the webinar, we'll have presenters provide information about truth in billing and slamming, the Missing Endangered Persons Emergency Alert Code, multi-line telephone systems, and the Safe Connections Act. As I conclude my remarks, I'd like to briefly mention some resources that consumers and your organizations can use. Visit our website, fcc.gov, to find more information about commission-wide events and our headlines. You can also visit the online Consumer Help Center at fcc.gov/consumers for more information about consumer-facing topics and the full list of materials available either to download or via request that we will send to your organizations. We also have CAOD's webpage, fcc.gov/outreach. And again, a reminder to everyone to email outreach@fcc.gov to schedule any meetings with the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division. We look forward to collaborating with you and your organization on providing information. And with that, I'd like to turn over to my colleague, Wes Platt, the Chief of the Consumer Policy Division, for his remarks.
How's that? All right. Thank you, Kayla, and good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be here today with you at the kickoff meeting of the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. This gathering marks a renewed commitment to ensuring that telecommunications aren't just innovative, but also fair, safe, and accessible to every consumer. I'm Wes Platt, Chief of the Consumer Policy Division, and CPD is, well, this CPD, the Commission has multiple CPDs and even one CIPD. But we are one of the frontline guardians at the Commission of Consumer Interests. And we've been especially active this year already, taking on challenges such as robocalls and slamming and truth in billing. And today I'll share with you some of the highlights of that work and reflect on how it connects to the mission of this new committee. Starting off in February, the Commission adopted an order that expanded its requirement to block calls based on a reasonable do not call list. And this includes now all US-based providers in the call path. That order also established SIP code 603+ as the exclusive code to notify callers when calls on IP networks are blocked based on reasonable analytics. and in doing so, better correct erroneous blocking. In addition, the Commission has already taken a number of steps to address robocalls under the TCPA. These include, and there are slides. Is there a way to? Next one. So these actions under the TCPA include confirming that when a consumer gives their telephone number to a utility, they're providing prior express consent under the TCPA to receive non-telemarketing texts, which include time-sensitive demand response communications that promote both reliable utility service and, in many cases, cost savings to the consumers. The Commission also delayed the effective date of a new rule to the extent that it requires callers to treat requests to revoke consent made by a called party in response to one type of message is applicable to all future robocalls and robotexts from the caller. The new effective date for that rule is April 11th, 2026. The Commission also repealed the one-to-one consent rule after the 11th Circuit vacated the rule earlier this year. And in its place, the Commission reinstated that rule's prior version. Moving on from the TCPA, in July, the Commission released a notice of proposed rulemaking that sought comment on ways to modernize and simplify its slamming and truthing billing rules. And these proposed changes, next slide, please. These proposed changes are designed to reduce regulatory burdens, get rid of potentially overly prescriptive requirements, and all while retaining core consumer protections against things like unauthorized carrier switches and unauthorized charges. These and other recent actions by the Commission set a strong foundation for continued progress. This committee can continue that momentum by bringing fresh perspectives, highlighting consumer experiences, and helping us ensure that our policies remain both protective and accessible. I look forward to seeing its recommendations, and I thank you all in advance for your efforts. Together, we can help create a communication system that is fair, safe, and open to all.
Thank you to both of our speakers. At this time, we will open it up for 10 minutes of questions from members of our committee. If anybody has any questions, please just take your name tag and place it upright like this, and then I will call on you. Oh, Elizabeth.
I do have a question. This is Elizabeth. I'm curious how people with disabilities, including deaf and hard of hearing people, can protect themselves from robocalls and robotexts. Is there anything specific that we can do to address that?
First of all, just caveat that everything that the Commission is doing more broadly helps everyone, including individuals with disabilities. And these are efforts that attack illegal robocalls at every stage of the call, from before the call is placed, while the call is going through the network, and then afterward. And broadly, they break down into two additional subcategories. Like traditionally, the Commission is focused on things like the TCPA, which go after bad callers. And more recently, you've seen it focus on network-based efforts, stuff like blocking and stirred shaken, which help prevent illegal robocalls from reaching all consumers in the first place. In addition, we released a an AI related NPRM, I believe it was last year, that specifically sought comment on what rule changes could help ensure that individuals with disabilities are able to use AI and other emerging technologies to make the calls and receive the calls that they want, and avoid some of the illegal robocalls that have been problematic. So it's a 10,000-foot overview of our efforts.
Yes, please, Susie.
I would like to add that was a wonderful response. Thank you, Wes. And more specifically for individuals with disabilities, if you have additional questions or concerns, please do feel free to reach out to us at dro@fcc.gov or via our ASL line. We are always happy to help. We also have some consumer guides, as well as tip sheets, videos, and so forth to educate in identifying, recognizing bad actors, and in order to protect yourselves and your families. There is a lot happening in that space. So thank you.
Any more questions? Seeing none, I will go ahead and close the Q&A portion of this. Thank you to both of our speakers. We really appreciate your time to answer these questions and for giving us some remarks. Thank you. At this point, we're going to move on to the FACA records retention section of this hearing. At this time, I'd like to introduce Doris Gamble. She leads the Records and Information Management Specialist at the Office of the Managing Director, OMD.
Good morning. My name is Doris Gamble, and I work in the Records Management Branch under the Office of the Chief Information Officer at the FCC. And thank you, David and Joshua, for granting me some time during this meeting to go over some record-keeping responsibilities. So the National Archives and Records Administration oversees all records management programs for federal agencies. And back in 2019, NARA came to the FCC to review our record-keeping practices with a specific focus on permanent records. And as a result of this assessment, we established some procedures to help ensure that we're meeting all of our requirements. As you may know, Federal Advisory Committee Act requires that advisory committees create and maintain accurate and complete records of their activities, including meetings, discussions, recommendations. So these records are essential for transparency and accountability, and they may be subject to public disclosure. So to fulfill our responsibilities under the FACA, it is important that we all do our part to create and maintain these records. So this includes taking notes during meetings, preserving relevant documents and materials, and ensuring that these records are properly organized and managed. So Federal Advisory Committee records are to be maintained in accordance with the General Record Schedule 6.2 Federal Advisory Committee records. That's a mouthful, but basically it's a records disposition schedule that tells you what kind of records you should keep and how long you should keep them for. Your DFO will share an electronic copy of the disposition authority that outlines all the different types of documentation that we will be required to transfer to the National Archives. The disposition schedule, the GRS 6.2, is media neutral, meaning it applies to all records regardless of media. So most of the records that you guys do create are already in electronic format, which makes it a little bit easier. With the exception of meetings such as this one that are recorded, and those recordings will be in a digital format that we make sure complies with all of NARA's requirements. So what does that mean to all of you? Well, it's pretty easy. For all CPAAC members, all you're really required to do from a record-keeping perspective is ensure that the DFO has a complete and accurate record that documents the CPAAC's deliberations and decisions. So the work you all do is very, very important, and we want to make sure that it's documented and preserved. We have established a mailbox specific to the CPAC. Every committee member should copy the DFO and the mailbox on any emails pertaining to the business of the committee or its working groups. And at the appropriate time, I'll work with the DFOs to make sure that the contents that need to go, that need to be transferred to the National Archives get transferred. Just a final reminder that we're all responsible for creating and maintaining accurate and complete records of our activities. And if you have any questions or concerned about your responsibilities, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or David or Joshua to help. That's all I've got. Thank you so much for your attention. I'll turn it over to Paula.
Paula is online, just for the CMR to know.
Sorry about that. Thanks for inviting me. Just going to work position at the Justice Office, and I'm just going to give you the next 10 minutes or so an overview of the Federal Advisory Committee Act and both some of the requirements and, you know, sort of an explanation of how the group will conduct its business. So if you could go right to the first slide, please. Yeah, the Federal Advisory Committee Act governs the operations of most federal advisory committees unless a committee is otherwise exempted by statute. And FACA embodies several guiding principles: openness in government, a diverse and balanced membership that takes into account multiple viewpoints and perspectives, and public accountability. Next slide. The Act requires that there be timely notice of each committee meeting that has to be published in the Federal Register, typically on 15 calendar days notice. But since not everyone reads the Federal Register daily, we do provide for FCC public notices, releases, internet posting, and other media notices. And for the purposes of FACA, meetings can include video conferences, internet-based meetings, phone conferences, anything in which more than a quorum, which we define as 50%, 51% of the membership, anytime that more than a quorum of people are gathering and present. Next slide. So FACA requires that the meetings be open and permits submission of written statements to the committee. Members may also speak to and address the committee if there is time and if the FCC or committee guidelines permit that. It's important to note that under some very limited circumstances, portions of meetings may be closed after there's a process and the agency head approves and there's prior notice in the Federal Register. And this tends to be where the information that would be discussed involve trade secrets, classified government materials, or national security matters related to foreign policy. In the FCC, we have rarely had the need to invoke closed meetings, but it does happen occasionally. So if there's something that falls into these categories that you expect should be discussed at a committee meeting, please get in touch with your DFO and ask your DFO whether the information you think is about to be discussed, perhaps it's some kind of trade secret, would fall within this category, and the DFO would reach out to OGC, and our folks would review it and decide whether it'd be permissible or not to close the meeting, and we would take appropriate action. But the key thing here is if you have something that you feel is, highly confidential, we are not allowed to just last minute close the meeting. So this needs to be addressed ahead of time. Okay, next slide. So FACA requires that each agency keep minutes of meetings, and that includes a record of the persons who were present at the committee meetings and a list of all documents received, issued, or approved by the committee. And we typically, when we do our minutes, we typically attach these documents to the committee meetings. And that allows people to be able to inspect or copy the minutes or the related reports, unless they can be withheld under some kind of FOIA exemption. If you're interested in seeing the documents from a committee meeting or looking at the minutes, you can make a request to your committee's DFO. Okay, and sometimes, in many cases, key documents are posted on the committee's website, which would obviously be the easiest way to obtain them. Next slide. So all committees have a chair and a vice chair, and the duties of these individuals are that they can be a focal point for your questions or observations. The committee chairs and vice chairs work with the DFO to help set up informal working groups. And they're responsible for conducting meetings and also for working with the DFO to set up meeting agendas. Next slide. As you've probably already figured out, your designated federal officer, or DFO, plays a very important role by statute and by GSA regs for the committee for running the committee. So the DFO would call the meetings. The DFO needs to approve all agendas in advance. The DFOs attend the meeting, can chair or close meetings as needed, will maintain all committee records, and ensures that there are minutes of meetings that are taken. I would note here, sort of as Doris pointed out, that the DFO should be copied on all substantive emails pertaining to the business of the committee or the business of any of its working groups. So that way we can ensure that we do maintain all the proper records. And the easiest way is to just copy the DFO. And I believe that someone can correct me here, but I believe you also have a committee mailbox. Is that right, David?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's CPAAC at fcc.gov.
Right. So both the mailbox and your DFO should be copied on all substantive records. So what that would, basically the few things that wouldn't cover would be potentially notices saying, I'm sorry, I can't be here on such and such a day, or, what date works for the committee meeting. Sort of organizational things like that don't necessarily have to be sent, but if you don't want to make those judgment calls, the easiest thing is to just flood the inboxes and send the DFO copies of everything and send everything over to the mailbox, and then we'll sort out what's substantive and what's procedural later on. Okay. And the next slide is about record keeping, which we can skip because Doris has already covered it. Okay. Moving on to working groups. To facilitate the committee's work, some business, and sometimes a lot of business, is conducted by informal working groups. And their role is to basically make suggestions for the full committee on topics they're assigned. So there are sort of do's and don'ts associated with working groups. Informal working groups can gather information, but not through surveys, develop work plans, draft preliminary views or proposals, and discuss among themselves preliminary findings. Next page. So those are the typical things that working groups do, and they always report to the full parent committee, you folks who are sitting there today. But it's also important to know what working groups can't do. So working groups cannot function as a de facto parent advisory committee. And that means a working group cannot send its recommendations or proposals directly to the FCC. Can't send them off to the bureau chiefs, can't send them off to the commissioners. Your proposals would be typically going to the DFO and then on an agenda for a future committee meeting such as this one. When your proposals get to the full committee, got to be careful. They can't be just rubber stamped. People can't think, oh, that working group is great, and we're not going to talk about it. We'll just accept their actions. That's not the way it works. It needs a full presentation and review and vote by the parent committee. So consistent with that, the bottom line is that the working groups cannot make decisions that bind the full committee, and working groups cannot speak on behalf of the full committee, except in some cases with prior approval. For example, if a working group's report has been approved by the parent committee, for example, the head of the working group could be engaged as a speaker to explain what the recommendations involved and why they were approved and so forth. But basically, working groups work through the parent committee. Next page. Okay. Let me just say one thing before we get there. Why is it such a big deal that working groups stay in their own lane and not act, not do any of the things we just discussed that are beyond their authority? The reason is that if working groups often have closed meetings, and if working groups behave like a full parent committee, then in a sense they would become subject to the regulations that would be applicable to the parent committee, the most significant of which would be having open meetings, right? So all the work that was done in private, in informal working group meetings, if it gets rubber stamped or if it's sent directly to the full commission membership, it would in a sense be invalidated because it would have been done in private sections as opposed to in public meetings. Okay, here are a couple things that working groups can't do. Working groups cannot conduct surveys that would be subject to the Paperwork Reduction Act. So if members of a working group think that a survey might be helpful, members should reach out to the DFO. And the DFO, sometimes in conjunction with OGC, will evaluate whether whether that work would be subject to the Paperwork Reduction Act and whether it would be viable to seek PRA authorization. In most cases, PRA authorization takes several months. It can take up to 6 months. And given the time frame that you have, that's usually too long. So what you might do if there are some sort of informal surveys you want, coordinate with the DFO, they'll contact OGC, and there might be some ways to issue questions in a more generalized manner that might, for example, be posted on your website. But there are different ways to avoid the Paperwork Reduction Act based on how you formulate the questions, and OGC and your DFO could work with you on doing that. But you don't want to violate the PRA because then you couldn't use any of the information that you got through the questions that were issued. Let's see. And just a reminder that the number of committee members serving on a working group needs to be less than a quorum, less than 51% of the full committee. And if you exceed that number, your meetings would be subject to the open meeting requirements. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, next slide. Only one person from each organization can actively participate at a committee meeting, whether it's the CPAAC here or whether it's a working group. And among other things, that's just helpful for having orderly meetings. But other people who might be from the same organization are permitted to attend as observers. But if you're attending as an observer, you're not allowed to make proposals or to vote, etc., unless perhaps someone requests you to speak and provide expertise on a particular issue. But in general, there should be just one person who's actively participating. And the meetings are run in such a way, especially the working group meetings, that members from all organizations will have a fair chance to participate. Next slide. So if you find at a working group meeting that there's a particular issue that another person at a member organization is better suited to address, then you just work with the DFO and or your liaison for the working group, and you could arrange for that in advance. In addition, people who are maybe experts on a subject but who aren't members of the working group could be invited to attend a meeting and speak to you, give you information you need. So if a third party is attending by invitation, the person would give the presentation, respond to any questions, but after that person's presentation, because they're not, in my example, a member of the working group, they would need to leave the meeting. And I'm just reiterating that no matter how many people are present from an organization, each organization gets only one vote, whether it's the CPAAC or the working groups. Okay, next slide. So as some of you know, we have ex parte rules which which do apply to presentations made to the full committee or its working groups, and to presentations made between various members and FCC staff or commissioners, unless those presentations are exempt pursuant to a public notice. And in this case, I'm advised that your DFO and the commission have issued a public notice exempting certain presentations that would otherwise be deemed ex parte, exempting them from the ex parte rules. But what I'd like to point out is that this exemption covers only presentations from members to the FCC staff or commissioners in settings where committee or working group members are presenting the views of the committee or the views of the working groups. And this exemption would not cover a member who presents the individual views of that member or the individual views of the member's organization. So just because a member organization has membership on your committee or on a working group, that does not mean that the ex parte restrictions don't apply when an individual is representing his or her organization as opposed to representing the committee or the working group. So if you have any questions about how that works, feel free to reach out to me at any point or to your DFO. So next slide, please. Occasionally, members may want to communicate their views about pending matters to third parties in situations where the advisory committee itself or the working group itself has not had a vote on the issue. And if that's the case, you can make clear to third parties your views on pending topics, but you would need to make clear that these are your individual views and that they don't represent the views of the full committee or even of the working group, because there will not have been a vote on those matters yet. So you just need to distinguish between what the full committee has said and what your own views are, because occasionally people do get asked to comment for publications. We've had people who've given radio interviews, and it's just important to keep the thread of what your thoughts are on an issue versus what the committee's thoughts are. And I would just note that if the working group has voted on something, but that matter has not yet been made public or gone to the full committee, it would be inappropriate to make public what the working group has done until that gets to like a public agenda. So it's more of a working group recommendations until they're public are more of a close hold. And as I say in this paragraph here, there have been times in the past where people have also submitted like letters to the editor and they've given their individual views, which typically would be fine. But when those letters to the editors or opinion pieces are signed, saying that a person is a chair of a committee or a vice chair or even just a member of the committee, sometimes it leaves the impression that the views expressed are the views of the committee rather than the individual views. So all we would ask is you just be cautious if you're speaking about issues before the committee, to be able to draw that line between the formal committee position and your own position or the position of your organizations. And that's all that I have, but I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
First, I'd just like to, I'd first just like to thank our speakers. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to give us a rundown and explanation of the rules around the CPAAC. And at this time, I'd like to open up the floor to questions of the members of our committee to ask any questions that they may have. Yes, please.
Hi, Debbie Berlin, Project Goal. So I have a question. I'm not sure whether this is within Paula's purview, but we have two excellent working groups that have very different agenda items that they will be addressing. And I'm just wondering about the communication between the two working groups, how we will handle that during the course of the committee's activities. How will one working group know what the other working group is working on, and how will we handle that given the guidelines that Paula has just mentioned? Thanks.
Sure, and that does come up a lot. What we have, the guidance we typically give is that if one person from a different working group 2 and working group 1, so if a person from working group 2 wants to just attend and observe the meetings of working group 1, that would be fine, and not breach that form rule I was mentioning, as long as the person who attends is just silent and is just functions as an observer, so that you could, let people on your group have a sense of what's going on, so that you could coordinate or overlap. The other way to achieve coordination could be through the liaison from working group 1 going to working group 2 from time to time to sort of give a report on the issues that are being worked on. So, you have that flexibility. You could have an observer as long as they just observe, or you could have, work with the liaisons to get updates. Or if there's like some third method I haven't thought about, that's fine too. You could bring it to the attention of your liaisons or your DFO, and we'd be happy to discuss whether that works.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, at this point, I'd like to hand it back over to Josh to handle the public comment section of the CPAAC.
Thank you, Doris and Paula. Always appreciate your presentations. And now this is the portion of the meeting where we will both receive and respond to questions and comments from the audience, either in person or via email. If you've submitted your question via email, we will read it aloud or summarize it and then respond to the question or comment you've emailed. If you are here in person and would like to ask a question or make a comment, please stand or raise your hand and then approach the center at the corner of the table. There will be an individual there with a microphone. please do use that microphone to ensure you are heard or seen. If we have no response available at this time, we will do our best to respond at a later date. We do have one we've received through email thus far. It is from Mindy. And it states, Mindy is wondering if closed captioning is being developed among FCC's partners to foster an understanding for people with autism spectrum disorder by using emojis within captioning. For example, if there is a change of emotion on a televised program, the emojis could represent the emotion. For example, the happy face emoji or the sad face emoji, or a range of other emotions throughout the storyline to assist individuals with autism spectrum disorder and allow them to stay engaged and oriented. As closed captioning advances, per this person's remark, they thought it would be a good idea to develop. Thank you, Mindy, for your comment and your question. I will now turn it over to Susie Rosen-Singleton to respond. Hello, this is Susie Rosen-Singleton. In response to Mindy, your question about closed captioning and how there may be an option for accommodating your specific needs. We have received a number of questions about how we could potentially have options. It could be some children are learning how to read and they would prefer more simplified captioning, or perhaps foreign language users have a different preference in viewing their captioning. We do foresee next generation television will be the solution for that. We'll have multiple streaming options for audio descriptions or for captioning. And at this point, it is only deploying. It is now being deployed for ATSC 3.0. And that is to make next generation TV possible. This would allow the options in terms of which types of captioning you'd like to see, language, format, the ability to move the captioning around the screen, and being able to do that based on your own individual profile. That is the future of television. So hopefully that will help, and thank you for your input. We will take that into consideration moving forward in our work ahead. This is Josh. Thank you, Susie, for taking the answer. That's all we've received through email thus far. Would anybody here in the audience like to make a comment or ask a question? So be it. I'll now turn it back over to Logan to move forward with the next portion of this meeting.
Again, thank you for the online question. It's appreciated. Obviously, compliance can sometimes have very niche procedural requirements. So it's always great to get clarity and to expand the horizons on the things that this committee should be discussing. At this time, I'm going to just go around the table, around the CPAAC, to ask everybody to just give a highlight of something that you think that may be pertinent to the committee, that you think may be worthwhile to discuss. or anything that could blend the topics of accessibility and robocalls. So anything that you find pertinent to the committee. And I'll start just by going around to the left. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but if you have any examples or any pertinent developments, whether that be technological or policy or administrative, I'd love to hear it just so it primes us for our discussion.
Sure. Corlette Hannon, again with AARP. And I would just say my observation from what we've heard this morning is how much overlap there is in the interests of the disability working group and the folks that are going to be on the robocall consumer protection working group. And so I like the question that Debbie asked about how we're going to be able to connect those conversations that each of the working groups are having, because I think there is going to be a lot of overlap, and especially from an organization representing the interests of older adults. We know that, there are issues and things that folks in the disabilities community need and would make their lives richer and more engaging that also impact older adults as well. So again, to the extent we can leverage the insights and learnings from both working groups, I think will be very helpful.
Thank you. Maitreya Shah from the American Association of People with Disabilities. Thank you. Very, very interesting discussions, and glad to be on the accessibility working group. I think I'll echo your thoughts on how to bridge and combine both consumer and disability and accessibility work. At the same time, I think I'd like to highlight some of APD's focus and priorities, and which could be added to the agenda that we might discuss, is one, focusing on how people with disabilities, particularly in rural areas and who live with multiple marginalizations, are affected by modernization plans. The second is to focus more on how people with disabilities could be included in broadband access programs like USF. And the third is to, I think, deliberate more on how modern and emerging technologies like AI are changing communication and broadcasting for people with disabilities, and how we could best address new and emerging challenges in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Claire Stanley again with the American Council of the Blind. I think for me, as we talked about the technology accessibility working group, just talking and thinking about the different forms of technology that are out there that would fall under the purview of this this group, this committee. Technology is developing rapidly, and a lot of it I think does fall under the CVAA and other purviews of this group that we might not even think about. And technology has been a huge helper in the blind and low vision space, as well as other disabilities. The things we can do now are things we might never have thought of before. I used, Meta glasses this morning, for instance, to do several tasks. So all that to say, as we work in our working group, I'm just excited to think about what we can define, quote unquote, as technology and communication technology, and how it will or will not, but I think more often will fall under the purview of the CVAA and the work we're doing.
Hi, everyone. What always comes across to me in these discussions is how wide-reaching the work of these groups are going to be. We have a large number of different constituencies that are present here, and the topics that have been brought up, whether are things that are going to touch the lives of every single person in some way, shape, or form. So it is really dawning on me, particularly, I think the accessibility working group ambit can be quite large, to be thinking about how to find the topics that help to create the most benefit, and also be thinking about how that will dovetail into helping with some of the more, I'll call it, finer or bespoke work of the robocall working group, to be able to enable some of those tools to help some of the constituencies in the accessibility community really be able to benefit. I think that there was a question that was brought up earlier about, how do we protect better for those folks who may be vulnerable to robocalls who are in that community. So thinking about how we can have the work dovetail and how to be able to create tools that, help all consumers, but particularly with that focus on accessibility, I think will be really an interesting area to explore, and looking forward to it as always.
Hello, Angela with AT&T. Already, all of you have made very good points. I am very glad to see that this committee has been created. I think that these two areas are very important, a lot of overlap. Thank you, Deborah, for asking the question that we were all thinking. These are two great working groups that have very different charters and focuses, so I think and both are very important to my company and me. So very much looking forward to see how these working groups work individually and together. Also very much looking forward to just talking about the future, what's coming, and how we can try our best to get ahead of it and be better prepared. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Tom Lidkowski with Comcast NBC Universal. As Angela just said, I think a lot has been already mentioned. For me, I think it's the role that AI plays in all of this on all fronts that both working groups will be tackling, and how we make sure that AI, represents everyone. And then I think the intersection of technology platforms is another area. Phones, tablets, TVs, other devices, and what does that present in terms of challenges and opportunities that we need to consider here. Happy to be a part of it. Thank you.
This is Rachel Nemeth with the Consumer Technology Association. I just want to echo the points that have been made about the excitement about how these working groups can examine emerging technology and all the opportunities both in the accessibility space and the consumer protection space. So we are excited to be participating in the accessibility working group.
This is Christian Segura from CTIA. I echo all the excitement. I think something that Wes said earlier that really resonated with me is kind of the efforts that help the disability community, help everyone. And I think it's always important. I know I try to keep that in mind as we work on these issues. Kind of looking forward, thinking about how the IP transition and sort of the next generation of transmission will really enable, new data to flow with the call header, or how it might help on the robocall and addressing those kind of things. Looking forward to those discussions and look forward to participating on the accessibility working group.
Hi, Joel Thayer with the Digital Progress Institute. I think what I most look forward to working on, especially with my co-chair Claire, and I certainly second her points and harken back to what the chairman had said in terms of the modernization of the rules and making sure that the rules work for everyone, especially given how people have made many comments about the rapacity of technology, and it's incumbent upon this group and also the FCC to ensure that even though the technology may be moving at the speed of AI, no one should be left behind or left in its wake. So I very much looking forward to working with this group and making sure that we are able to modernize these rules in a responsible way and make sure that everyone has a seat at the table, especially now as most of these technologies are integral to our everyday lives. So we're very much looking forward to the work, as I said, and I appreciate any contribution that I'm able to make.
Hello, everyone. Jonathan Mark with Google. I'm really excited about the work of both of these working groups. specifically the robocall working group, which I'll be participating in. I'm interested in how we can drive advancements in reducing the number of unwanted calls and scams that consumers encounter, and especially how we can use emerging technologies such as AI to tackle this for all communities, including the accessibility community, our aging populations as well. So really looking forward to this work.
I'm Taylor Absher of Encompass, and tying back into Claire's points a little bit, all of our policy work at Encompass ties back to innovation and competition and ways that policies can help and not hinder our members from innovating. And a part of that tech innovation that I haven't really reflected on very much are advancements in accessibility. And we're working with several members in the areas of AI infrastructure and deployment. So that's a new area that I'm thankful to reflect on given the work of this working group already, and I'm excited to learn more.
This is Josh Pila from NAB. I want to echo some of the sentiments about innovation and technology and some of what Susie mentioned about next generation television. So there's, I think, a lot of opportunities as we're moving into the next technological age on the video programming side that I'm really excited to see where we can come from this committee.
Hello, Tina Metzer with NCRD and Rural Rise. Definitely echo what everyone has said, especially the interaction between the two groups and how important that will be. And also, technology is just amazing how quickly it's changing. Like every day, I hear of something that I'm so amazed that is happening. So I think it's very important that we try to stay on top of that and learn as much as we can as we meet and discuss in our working groups. And also, how do we communicate that to everyone? How do we make sure that we reach everyone? Because everyone really is going to be impacted by that. So really have an overall view of how we can reach everyone to get those points across.
Zainab with Deaf Equality here. I want to begin by emphasizing that the disability issues are consumer issues in two ways. The first is that anybody can have a disability. For example, you could lose your hearing later in life. So whatever our experience is could be your experience at some day, and so our needs are your needs. And of course, things like the curb cut effect. Sometimes we develop something with the disability community in mind that ends up benefiting those who are temporarily not disabled. And so we have to think about creating new curb cuts out there, curb cuts effects together that will impact all of us and all of the broader communities. With that in mind, technology can be, of course, incredibly beneficial for people with disabilities, and it can be harmful. Sometimes we get left behind or overlooked. So I'm looking forward to exploring these issues together and how we can equalize technology for the benefit of everybody. So for example, AI being such a hot topic these days, how can AI help us? And also consider how AI can have detrimental and harmful effects, both for people with and without disabilities and users in general.
Hello. Olivia Wine, National Consumer Law Center. Thank you, and I thank you, Zainab. I appreciate those remarks and absolutely identify with them, and am looking forward to that sort of curb cut effect as we sort of explore, and just want to sort of bring it back to making sure that we keep consumer protection in mind, especially with the illegal robocalls. And so I'm looking forward to those interesting conversations and hopefully the development of some good recommendations in that working group. Thank you.
Yes, hi, Pam Arluck with NCTA. And, echoing what everyone has said, the commission is currently examining how to handle robocalls in non-IP areas, because in those areas, stir shaken does not work. And so, to be mindful of accessibility issues as we're looking at those issues. Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Berlin, the Project to Get Older Adults Online, Project Goal. And so much of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I'll still continue to talk anyway. I want to just emphasize what Zainab said, and we are all on a path to needing accessibility services. I'm sure all of us in this room have looked at the closed captioning on the screen, for example. The need of hearing accessibility services is not just an older individual need, younger and younger individuals need those services as well. So, for Project Goal, the benefits of technology are great. Older adults are benefiting from technology advances, but we also need to look at what some of the challenges of technology are as well, and I think that that's something that this committee will be focused on, particularly in the area of robocalls. I could share many stories, and perhaps I will, in our working group of how older adults have experienced some of the scams, frauds, et cetera, of robocalls, robotexts, and inadvertently sometimes fallen prey to some of the scams that are on there. They're very creative. They're 2 steps ahead of us now, not just one, and using technology to grab our attention and to engage in frauds that are very difficult to know what's real and what's not real. Thank you.
Hi, Chris Breitmeyer, Rural Community College Alliance. And I think I've heard it touched on here a few times, but one of the things I think we need to do in both committees is realize that, this service is for our fellow citizens, and to be very cognizant of the fact that there are varying levels of technology literacy out there. So when we make recommendations and communicate out, it needs to be clear and actionable for those folks, whatever, from either group. And that's all I would say, because I think a lot of times we think particularly young people are very literate in this way, but they're not. It varies across the board.
Carl Gerner from T-Mobile. I think we are particularly supportive and appreciative of this expanded group, having both of these working groups in communication and working together. I think is a great opportunity for us to learn from one another. I'll be serving on the robocall mitigation working group, but we're prepared and excited to provide input on recommendations impacting a broad range of consumers, including the robocall mitigation and accessibility topics.
Hi, Ian Dillner with Verizon. Being at the end of the line, I thought I'd just summarize what I think nearly everybody commented on, which is that we're living through an era like many other eras before us, with a lot of changing technology, and talking through for both working groups, talking through how changing technology might create challenges that we want to figure out how to avoid, but also creates opportunities that were not previously available. So I look forward to working with you all to talk through those, the puts and takes of changing technology. Thanks.
I don't know if anybody online has anything that they would like to add to this discussion. If not, that's okay. I'd be happy to add my own thoughts before we get into some closing remarks. Seeing none on that, I'll just say a couple of quick things. Again, My name's Logan, and I work for the American Consumer Institute, which is a think tank. So we're a research nonprofit, and I deal especially and specifically in technology policy. So I do telecom, but I also spend a lot of time on artificial intelligence, privacy issues, which is something that I think sometimes gets overlooked here. Specifically on data privacy, but on other avenues as well. And in technology policy, we often talk pretty frequently about what's called the pacing problem, which is that technology advances much faster than policymakers or regulators are able to respond to the space of technological change. However, what I do think is interesting is that even if government entities do make improvements, albeit at a somewhat slower pace, there are people in the field that use technology to respond to technological problems. So in that sense, I'm glad that this committee is representative not just of think tankers like myself, but a wide variety and diverse viewpoints of people that know on the front lines how to respond to these issues and how the FCC or other government committees could be effective in augmenting that kind of challenge. Because I do think it is true that the people most positioned to respond quickly are those that are using the technology themselves. So I will say that, and then on the other side of this is I will be dealing with robocall mitigation, and I think the thing that can sometimes be challenging on that is the enforcement side of the equation, which I think is something that wasn't completely brought up, but I do think it's worth considering. The government is itself limited in its ability to respond to robocall mitigation, specifically when that comes from outside of the country. So I think that would be a worthwhile discussion pain point to really touch on and hit on. So at this time, I'm thankful for everybody that was willing to share their remarks and guide some of that discussion and preparation as a primer for the working groups that we'll be talking through later this afternoon. But I'll just end with some closing remarks, and that's that sometimes the reward for good work is more work, which is one thing that I am optimistically hopeful that not only will we be able to deliver positive, actionable recommendations, but that this can be a continuation of the successes that similar advisory committees have had in the past. So given that everybody brings their own set of viewpoints to the discussion here today, I'd just like to say thank you as a co-chair of the organization, that we appreciate and value your input, and I'm glad you're all here. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Elizabeth for any final remarks.
Thank you so much, Logan. I do appreciate your final remarks, and I did want to thank everybody here today for joining us. I also wanted to add to Zainab's comment about disability is going to touch everybody at some point, right? On a human level, be it within your family or within your friends. Everybody is impacted by disabilities at some point in your life. So I appreciate your comment. For those of you who may not be aware of the organization that I'm a part of, NASADHH, we are state directors of the deaf and hard of hearing services all across the country. So for example, I'm the director in New Jersey's division of deaf and hard of hearing. So if you do need resources or interested in learning more about deaf and hard of hearing needs and issues, there are resources that are available for you. You can reach out to our organization or any director in your state. There are many national organizations around here, but if you have questions in a specific state, those state directors are available to you. I'm looking forward to working with this group. And doing the working group meetings this afternoon. We're going to have lunch, but I did want to announce the next meeting date, January 14th, 2026, in the new year. So January 14th. We will see you then, and now I am pleased to announce this meeting is closed. Thank you all.